Welcome back to the Golden State with Mates post-game live after the Warriors get a much-needed 109-105 victory over the Phoenix Suns at Chase Center on Saturday night. I have just finished watching the press conferences where Draymond Green made a comparison between Jonathan Kuminga and James Harden, which really sums up this game. I'm all the way back in. I'm sucked back into Jonathan Kuminga after he had his minor stint in the starting lineup over Draymond and then pushed back to the bench. I was out. I was done. I thought this guy's got to be off the team. They literally cannot use him properly and cannot utilize him enough and his strengths. Well, these back-to-back games are undoubtedly the best games of Jonathan Kuminga's career. Obviously, he had the 34 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists yesterday against the LA Clippers, and now backs that up, playing alongside Draymond, playing alongside Steph, leads the Warriors to a 4-point win over a good Suns team, albeit they're struggling at the moment. We're without Devin Booker. He matches his career high. It took less than 24 hours for him to match that. Another 34 points, adds 9 rebounds, a few assists in there as well. Just a huge performance from Jonathan Kuminga. And again, now we have the overarching question, is this the turning point for Jonathan Kuminga? And Steve Kerr has said that. He said in his post-game presser here just a few minutes ago that he feels like this is a turning point for Jonathan Kuminga. I'm back in. I'm not going all the way there yet to say that this is the moment that he's about to explode and be the player that the Warriors and Warrior fans have wanted him to be over the past few years here, in particular over the past 18 months or so. But these last two performances, my goodness, his aggressiveness getting to the rim, attacking, and that unstoppable nature at the rim that we've seen from him sporadically, it must be said, over the past 12 to 18 months. Just enormous, just enormous. The 2024 man says JK is a star. Ghost says it says 9:30. That's in regard to when this was scheduled for. I do apologize. I had this scheduled for 1:30 my time, but it's actually 3:30. I just got that completely wrong. So I apologize. And maybe that means there's less people in the chat now. So again, I apologize for that. But some of you might be watching on replay or listening via the podcast feed and should be excited regardless, given that performance that we just saw from Jonathan Kuminga, who not only delivered 34 points, but the fourth quarter there takes the role on Kevin Durant, and it must be said, does a really good job of making things very difficult on KD. And you know what? This is going to be one of perhaps the biggest hot takes or perhaps the most blasphemous things that I've ever said on this podcast. But here's what I'm going to say. This is a massive statement. The Warriors nearly lost this game against the Suns in the fourth quarter because Steph Curry was the number one option over Jonathan Kuminga when he shouldn't have been. This is the first time I can properly say I can watch a game and think to myself, the Warriors should be going to Jonathan Kuminga over Stephen Curry in the final few minutes of this game offensively. Now to say that, it sounds blasphemous. Steph is the greatest player this franchise has ever had, and he's a two-time MVP. So for me to say that they should be going to Jonathan Kuminga in the final few minutes over Steph offensively, it sounds stupid, it sounds bizarre, but I dead set think it's the truth in this game. And you know what? They finally went to JK there in the final 30 seconds, and look what happened. So to give you a bit of an overall summation of this game, the Warriors had a good start, led by 9 early in the second quarter. And then that second quarter, yes, it finished with a crazy Steph circus shot to end the half, but it was a disastrous second period. And some of the stuff Steve was doing was awful. Some of the turnovers from Steph were just horrifically bad, really allowed Phoenix to get back into the game while KD sat on the bench. Right, the Warriors were up 9. All of a sudden, when KD comes back, the Suns are up 5. They go plus 14 in a period there without Kevin Durant on the floor. Just some absolutely mind-boggling turnovers from Steph. Dre's defense, I thought, was really poor. The biggest gripe I had with that first half is, again, the Warriors were once up 9, ended up being down 4 at the end of the first half, and were probably lucky to be that close. The biggest gripe I had was Steve Kerr not going back to Trace Jackson-Davis after an incredibly impressive start to the game. Trace ends up subbing out of the game for Draymond with 9:41 left in the second quarter, so just 2 minutes into the second period. He subs out for Draymond, and then Draymond just plays as a small ball five for the rest of the half, for the last nearly 10 minutes of the second quarter. And they didn't go back to Trace, who had something like 9 points, 4 rebounds, couple of blocks, an assist, or something like that in his 11 minutes early in the game. That was, I don't know what Steve was doing, because defensively, Draymond just didn't really have the energy to be playing as a small ball five for a large portion of that game, I didn't think. We have to look at this game and see Kevon Looney was a DNP, Kyle Anderson was a DNP, and so Trace ends up playing just over 23 minutes. Draymond played nearly 25 minutes, over half that game as a small ball center. Now, do I think that's sustainable moving forward? Not if he's going to play defensively like I think he did in that second quarter, where not only was he giving up shots at the rim and not really contesting in a way that we've seen previously from Draymond, but also the rebounding. Like, the Warriors could not secure defensive possessions in that second quarter. The Suns were not missing much anyway, but when they did, they were getting second and third chance opportunities. I thought that second quarter was awful all around from Steph and Draymond. I thought were both terrible, although Draymond did hit 3 threes during that second quarter. So offensively, he was fine. Defensively, I thought he was poor, given his high standard. Steph throwing the ball everywhere. Steve Kerr's lineup, where he just didn't go back to Trace, was just horrific, I thought. And that was the period where the Warriors, you must say, nearly lost the game, right? They get back into it in the third, and then they close the third quarter really poorly. The Dennis Schroeder, Buddy Hield minutes were poor, although I'll get back into Dennis in a second. He was good to end the game. Then the Warriors, all of a sudden, Josh Okogie hits a corner three, and they find themselves down 191, with less than 7 minutes to go in the game. And then over the final 6 minutes, they outscored the Suns 18-5. Kuminga had 9 of those points in the last 6 minutes. Schroeder had a couple of big plays, which, again, I'll get into. But more importantly, the defense. Phoenix went without a field goal. After that Okogie corner three with, I think, 6:48 left in the final period, they did not make a field goal over the rest of the game. They made 5 free throws, right? KD did put them in front with 30 seconds left. And I thought the Warrior offense in the final 3 or 4 minutes became a bit Steph reliant. Again, I would have gone to Kuminga more. Durant draws a foul from Kuminga, goes to the line, makes 2 free throws, puts the Suns up 1, and then off the immediate timeout, Kuminga ducks to the rim. Draymond finds him, gets fouled himself by Durant, and then Kuminga, clutch, comes up with 2 big free throws there with 29 seconds left, makes both of them, puts the Warriors back up by 1. Durant then misses a tough fadeaway mid-range on the following possession. Schroeder gets to the rebound first, gets fouled by Bradley Beal. He goes to the line, makes 2 clutch free throws. Warriors up 3. And then Bradley Beal, strange decision not to take a potentially game-tying 3, tries to take a mid-range pull-up 2, basically. Tries to go, not 2 for 1, because it was in the final 15 seconds. I'm not really sure what he was doing, why he didn't try a 3 there. But ultimately, he missed. Kuminga gets the rebound. Then Kuminga misses the first, which you think, okay, there's still 4 seconds here. Suns would have a chance after the timeout, but he calmly makes the second. Warriors up 4. They end up winning the game. So Kuminga was huge. Just an unbelievable performance from him. I know you guys will want to talk about him, so I'll read some comments out here. Gamer F2P says, I think Trace and JK and Moody should be traded for. Kerr does not deserve them. The problem is Draymond does not jump for rebounds at all. Watch the tap carefully. Also to note, Kerr needs to stop riding Dennis Hield Pod's rotation with Wiggins. It just can't work. Go says that's okay, but yes, we've been waiting for Kerr to give JK the leash to do what he does best, and it speaks volume that it was Steph and Dre. Gamer F2P says if Pods wasn't injured, we would have lost this game because of the Buddy Hield Pods rotation. Yeah, so Pods got injured, I think, in the first half, some kind of abdominal strain or something like that. Didn't play in the second half, ended up playing just 11 minutes where he had 2 points, 2 rebounds, and was a minus 17. So not great minutes there. The Buddy Hield stuff, oh, that was awful. He played nearly 15 minutes, and you know what? It felt like more because everything he did was so negative that it felt like the time that he was on the floor was very slow. Like, it felt like forever because it was just that bad, and I was dying for him to leave the court. He could have left the arena for all I care. That was awful minutes. He was a +2, to be fair, but my goodness, 0 of 7 from the floor, all 3-point attempts that he missed. He had an assist and 1 steal. Cool. He did absolutely nothing. Was awful in that game, and it nearly came back to bite the Warriors. The Warriors had 37 bench points in this game. Kuminga had 34 of them, right? And Lindy Waters made a 3 in the fourth quarter. So the Warriors got no points out of Podziemski, no points out of Hill. Again, 34 from Kuminga, 3 from Waters. Anderson didn't play. Looney didn't play. Moody was out injured. Payton out injured. And then Guy Santos obviously didn't play either after playing 4 minutes and 50 seconds against the Clippers on Friday night. But wow, Kuminga's just the story from this game, obviously. And it must be like, is this the turning point for Kuminga? Is this the turning point? Because this is the first time I think he's played in a game with Steph and Draymond alongside him where he was the man. Like, Steph in that fourth quarter, can we see what... I'm just going to go back to the offense in that kind of final 3 or 4 minutes there down the stretch, because it felt like Steph was taking everything and it wasn't really working. So Steph made a floater with 4:43 left that pulled the Warriors within 3. The next few offensive possessions, we had a Schroeder finger roll layup. That was a nice one there. Kuminga made 2 free throws. So the Warriors led 101-100 with 3:28 to go. Then we had a Curry bank hook over Beal, which was not close. He kind of got fed the ball by Schroeder under the rim, and it was a bit congested and not great. Curry then missed a 3 on the next possession. That's Kuminga fouled Durant, who went 1 of 2 of the line. Curry pull-up jump shot, no good. Wiggins had a 3-point shot blocked, then Schroeder came up with a huge 3. And then we had a Curry driving floating bank shot, which missed with 42 seconds left. Kuminga tip layup, no good. Green tip layup, no good. Curry gets the rebound, gets a step back 3, which he misses. So Steph basically missed 5 shots in a row. From the 3-minute mark, he missed 5 shots in a row. And I honestly thought, so Kuminga in those final 3 minutes did not take a single shot aside from the tip layup, if you want to argue. He did not take a field goal attempt or a shot attempt from the 3-minute mark to the final 30 seconds. And finally, after that timeout, after KD put the Suns in front, finally they went to Kuminga and he immediately got fouled from Durant and put the Warriors back in front. It was literally the first time in Kuminga's career where not only was he the man over Steph, instead of Steph, Kuminga was the man in this game. It was the first time where I, and I'm sure a lot of you as well as fans, would argue that they should have gone to Kuminga as the number 1 guy in that clutch scenario in the final minutes over Steph. And again, the fact I'm saying that is incredible and extraordinary, but I dead set think it's the truth. So I don't know. What are we going to see from here? What are we going to see? Because every time I think Kuminga's going to take a leap and that's going to be it. He's going to become this star player like he's shown he can be. Right? These 2 games show this guy can be a dead set star in this league and a 25, 30 point per game guy. Like that. This is what we've seen from him in the last 2 games. But every time we think that, something happens where it peters out to nothing. And then every time I'm out and I think, okay, this guy's going to be off the team in the next few weeks and he doesn't have a future with the Warriors, every time that happens, he just comes back and rejuvenates and is even better. Like, these are the best 2 games of his career, I would argue, along with that Rockets game that was without Steph earlier in the month. Like, this is as bad as the month has been for the Warriors, right? With now, what are they, 4-12 here, I think, in the last 16 games. As bad as this month has been for the Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga has produced, I would say, the best 3 performances of his career in this month of December. Now, they're certainly the 3 best scoring-wise, like that's factual, but just overall impact, again, okay, maybe you want to argue he wasn't, they obviously lost by 10 yesterday against the Clippers, so maybe that's not part of it, but he was huge, like 34 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists off the bench, got to the free throw line repeatedly, like that was massive, led the Warriors from down 20 to nearly, getting back into that game and finding themselves only down 3 with a few minutes left, so I don't know where to go from here because I'm not sure what can we expect. What can we... I think what I will say, and Steve has alluded to this already in his press conference, Kuminga will continue to come off the bench, but he will play starter minutes. He will play 30 plus 35 minutes, which I think ideally Kuminga would be a starter, right? Because if you want to give a guy 120, 150 plus, 180 whatever $1 million contract in restricted free agency this summer, if you want to do that, then the guy probably needs to be a starter for you, In fact, I think he definitely needs to be a starter for you, but that's just not going to happen by the sounds of it. He will continue to be the sixth man, continue to be this explosive scoring punch off the bench. Again, still playing 30, 35 minutes. And it'll be interesting to see what that means for the rotation. It means no Looney at the moment, no Kyle Anderson. It means Draymond's probably going to play a heap of small ball minutes. I still think Trace needs to play more. I think JK and Trace over these last 5 games have been the biggest positive by far for the Warriors. Like Trace, I think, has been great. He plays 23 minutes in this game and has a 16.10 rebound double-double. He has 4 block shots as well, 2 assists and a steal. I thought he was magnificent. And I think he's been great since returning to the starting lineup. And I think he needs to play more. I think if you're going to have Looney out of the rotation, I think Trace needs to play closer to 30. And then that means Draymond, if he's a small ball 5, plays like 15 to 18, I would say. Right. And obviously, depending on certain matchups, you're probably going to have Trace out there for close to 30 anyway, or you're going to have Looney out there playing some like the Warriors are going to be playing against the Cavs here on Monday, where they're going up against Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley. That will probably call for more Trace Jackson-Davis or for some Kevon Looney, right? Rather than Draymond small ball. They're going to be playing Joel Embiid here shortly at Chase Center. That will probably call for more Trace or potentially some Loon. So it's going to depend on the matchup, but it's really fascinating to see how this rotation is going to work out. I think Steve's coming to the knowledge here that JK is going to come off the bench and he's going to play 30-plus minutes, but who works around him? I still think, and I'm disappointed that they haven't gone back to this more, I still think a Steph Kuminga, Draymond, Trace 4-man combination needs to be gone to more. Now, I know the spacing is an issue, and again, maybe that's, again, an argument for the Warriors going out and getting a spacing 5 like a Nikola Vucevic or something like that. Again, sorry to reiterate the point as I continue to do, but maybe I think they need to go to that more, and then either Wiggins or Schroeder at the other spot, depending on who's playing well. And Wiggins wasn't good. Again, back-to-back poor performances from Wiggins, 7 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 of 12, 1 of 6 from three-point range. And Schroeder was poor. It must be said, poor. 4 of 13, 1 of 7, 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. But hopefully he'll gain some confidence and momentum from the final few minutes there, where he had some big plays and he finally came through for the Warriors in the clutch. He had that layup over Iguodala in the final 4 minutes there, which is a nice one, kind of beat him off the dribble and then made a crafty finger roll there. Makes the big 3. He's only one. He was 0 of 6 and then makes a big 3 to put the Warriors in front in the final 90 seconds. And then plays some really good defense in the final 90 seconds in that play where KD missed the fall away jumper. Schroeder gets the ball before Beal draws the foul and then calmly makes the 2 free throws. So a good end to the game for Schroeder. The first 44 minutes were terrible, but the final 4 minutes were good, and hopefully he can take that with him moving forward. Sorry, I've missed a heap of comments from you guys. GameRef2P says, did you hear Draymond shouting at Buddy in game saying to wake the F up? Come on, yeah, I did hear that. That was hilarious. Also slightly concerning, I suppose. Hopefully Buddy takes that the right way. I think that's just Draymond's intensity. But the fact you could hear that on the broadcast, yeah, he told him to wake the F up, and if he's not, to sit his butt down on the bench, basically. So, yeah, it's the Buddy Hield stuff hasn't been good. And I don't know, there's still, if you're going to commit to Kuminga, and obviously you're going to commit to Draymond and Steph, so that's the top 3. Does that make Wiggins more expendable? Wiggins played 39 minutes in this game, to be fair, which was I cannot believe he played 39 minutes. That seems like, it feels like he just didn't have any impact. Kind of one of those games that Wiggins has been criticized for in the past, I suppose, where he plays a lot and you just don't really see him out there and feel his impact whatsoever. So that's, yeah, the fact he played 30. If you'd asked me before checking the box score at the end of the game how many minutes Wiggins played, I would have said like 30. But anyway, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do around that. They're definitely shortening the rotation. They are definitely shortening the rotation. Some of that is injury forced. Again, no Moody, no Peyton, both out injured. But like Looney and Anderson both getting DNPs, that must be a first for this season. Like, I don't think those guys have both been DNPs in the same game this season. Pods obviously getting injured, not playing the second half, meant they went an 8-man rotation in the second half. Waters played 13.5 minutes. I hope Moody might get those minutes once he's up and running, but his knee issue is a bit of a concern at the moment. Thandeka says, I think JK is a star if he gets star minutes. Romario says the denied defense from JK on KD was great. Yeah, he was very good. Like, KD played well, but he goes 10 of 24 from the floor, 41.7%, 1 of 5 from 3, has 8 turnovers in this game. So you can look at 31, 6, and 3 with 4 blocks as very, very good. But again, Durant, 41.7% shooting from the floor, 8 turnovers, and a couple of those turnovers were forced by Kuminga in his hands. Another one by Schroeder where he kind of came up behind him there on a fall away, which he then stripped him, and then KD kind of pushed it out of bounds, forced a turnover there. So the Warriors did I know KD had 31, but the Warriors I thought did a reasonable job on Durant, particularly late in the game, and Kuminga deserves a lot of credit for that. He can be a very good defender, and I think his team defense isn't great, but if you give him an assignment and say, as Steve seemingly did in this game, where he said, you go and guard Kevin Durant, who's one of the best offensive players in the history of the game, you go and guard him, and then Kuminga kind of brings that focus and brings that concentration which he needs, and he's never going to shy away from a challenge. He sees Kevin Durant out on the floor, and I genuinely think Jonathan Kuminga thinks, I'm a better player than you. And you know what? He actually kind of was in this game. Like, he actually won that battle, which is, again, it's crazy to think that in this podcast episode, I'm saying that the Warriors should have gone to Kuminga as the number one option first over Steph Curry, and that he outplayed Kevin Durant in the same game. I don't know. This is the talent of the guy. This is the talent of Jonathan Kuminga and what he can do. Thendek says, yesterday I said JK can't play with Steph. What do you now think? Yeah, I wrote an article about it too. They definitely so him coming off the bench obviously allowed, one of the good things about it is the non-Steph minutes, they are just Kuminga's, right? Now, yes, you'll get a sprinkling of Schroeder running pick and rolls and stuff like that with Trace and whatever else, but those are JK minutes. Those are, you go out there, you are our number one guy, you do really whatever the hell you want, right? You go and just attack with force, and basically just run the second unit. You're not the point guard as such, but the ball is going to be in your hands a majority of the time. And that's what we saw. And I think that's, again, one of the benefits of him coming off the bench. He's just going to dominate the non-Steph minutes, right? Which I think is a good thing. And he also he played pretty well next to Steph. I know Steve pointed out that missed 3 from Steph in the final 2.5 minutes where JK gave the ball back up to Draymond immediately, then set a screen for Steph to get open. Steph missed the 3, but Steve really liked that play from Kuminga, the fact he gave the ball up immediately, then set a screen for Steph. So it's going to be a work in progress, but those guys are going to have to figure it out because they're the two. We're going to get to a point pretty quickly here where Kuminga, well, are we going to get to the point? I think we should get to the point pretty quickly. Whether it happens or not, we'll wait and see. I think we'll get to the point pretty quickly, though, that Curry and Kuminga will be the best 2 players on the team. Those will be the best 2 players on the team. Unless the Warriors make a significant trade here for a star player, which would probably include Kuminga in the deal, then I think it's going to be Steph and Kuminga. Like, those are the best 2 players on the team. Wiggins is like your third scorer, and Draymond's obviously the leader of the defense, but Kuminga's got to be a 30, 35 minute per game player, and he's going to, he's capable of averaging. I think he should be averaging minimum 20 plus points a game. Has to be, I think it'd be closer to 25. Like we've seen these last 2 games, he's getting 18 to 20 field goal attempts and getting to the free throw line over 10 times. So they are this was the first time where Steph was playing and they also went heavy on Kuminga, and it was good to see, and it worked. Go says JK offense and defense was amazing, along with the rebounding. He dominated, and that's just being real. Yeah, he dominated, and it wasn't just the scoring. It was the defense on Durant. It was the rebounding, as you said, using his size and athleticism in a way that's more than just what he does, scoring the ball, which we know he's so dominant at, getting downhill. In fairness, Mason Plumlee isn't the greatest shot blocker in the world. I think Kuminga saw him a couple of times and thought, well, you're just not really doing anything to resist me in any way, so I'm just going to keep going at you. But that's what you can do with him. There were a couple of times where Tyus Jones switched onto him, or Monty Morris, or a smaller defender, and the Warriors rightfully saw that and just gave the ball to him and said, you go to work, because you've they've got nothing against you. Those guys literally cannot guard you. And how many guys do the Warriors have who can really use their physical ability to overpower, to overmatch guys and actually create genuine mismatches? They like Steph, obviously, when he's being guarded by bigs, that's like a legit mismatch there. But he's like, otherwise, he's just a crazy shot maker, really. Like, it's not him and his physical attributes that does it for him. It's, albeit he's an underrated athlete, I think, but it's just his sheer skill that gets him as, one of the greatest players of all time. But Kuminga, the Warriors actually have a genuinely physical asset there that can simply overpower guys. Thandex said Steph almost sold when he was missing those shots. JK is literally the only one who makes the effort to get into the paint. Yeah, it's completely different to what the Warriors have had really over the last 10 to 12 years. And that's why it's probably been a slow grind for them to actually involve Kuminga more. And this was definitely, I think the best and the biggest game tonight of his career in terms of the Warriors saying, hey, we've got this guy who's a real force and we need to lean on him more rather than just this motion offense where Kuminga's, setting screens for guys and, being off the ball consistently and not really getting that opportunity. Gamer F2P says JK just needs minutes. Something that happens is Kerr not giving him opportunity. I believe both Moody and JK are stars, way better than Wiggins, but they need minutes and to be empowered. I don't see it necessarily with Moody. I think he can be a consistent rotation player that can play 15, 20 minutes for you, but I don't think he's a star. I don't think he has that upside. He's not great, like, individually. Like, he's your prototypical 3-and-D. Really, like, the ideal version of Moses Moody is a guy that shoots high 30% from three-point range on decent volume and is a rangy, lengthy defender on the other end who is switchable. That's who he is. He doesn't have the individual playmate, like individual scoring ability where you, like, with Kuminga, you can just give him the ball and he'll get you a bucket. Moody, you can't do that, right? You can't. He's an off-ball guy, catch and shoot guy. And I think he can be good in that role. And I think he can have a long career in that role and be a very good role player for you, but I don't think he's going to be a star. Thandex says good defense on the Warriors in the final 3 minutes and that TJD has been playing well lately. Gamer F2P says TJD has been playing great. He's been getting more minutes. I think he should be getting more. The fact he did not play over the final 9:41 in the second quarter was one of the worst coaching decisions I've seen from Steve across the course of this season. And he's had a few, but Trace was not only playing excellent, like he had 9 points, 3 rebounds, couple of blocks in 11 minutes in the first half. Not only that, but Draymond just wasn't bringing it defensively. And in that 9:41, where Trace was on the bench to close the second quarter, the Suns had 31 points. 31 points, and the Warriors just couldn't stop them and had no one on the interior. Like, guys were getting beaten off the dribble on the perimeter, and there was no interior force whatsoever. And Trace has actually been playing with that interior force that we've so much wanted from him early in the season, which when he was really quite disappointing to start the season. Again, these last 5 or 6 games, he's being much stronger in the paint, rebounding the ball, blocking shots, contesting at the rim, finishing a lot better as well, it must be said. He did miss some layups tonight. Ryan Dunn, contested him well on a couple of occasions, but Trace, these last 5-6 games, has been excellent. Trace not worried about making mistakes to get subbed out. That unlocks him. Yeah, possibly. LT says Curry's a JK hater. Cornelis says Wiggs' defense impacted the game, and I like Waters playing over pods. Yeah, I don't think Waters will be playing too much over pods moving forward, but yeah, that obviously Steve had to do that with the injury factor to pods. We'll see what happens to him there. Romario says facts about Wiggs. As far as Waters goes, Kerr just should not overuse both of them. That's all to me. Yeah, I think it's going to shake out pretty quickly, hopefully, here, where the Warriors have 6 guys. They have their starters in Kuminga, who should all be playing 30-plus minutes, you would say. And then it's a sprinkling of Pajemski and Hield and Moody. And if the game calls for it, if the opposition calls for it, then you're going to get some Anderson and some Looney and some Waters and maybe some GP2 as well. But they've got 6 guys. I think what I've always wanted, I want a hierarchy, right? I don't want Steph and Draymond, and then 10 blokes who you can all argue should be playing the same amount of minutes. I want a hierarchy here, and I think now we've got a top 6 hierarchy. It's the starting lineup, and it's Kuminga, right? That's the 6. And really, no matter what, those guys should be playing all 30-plus minutes, really. Now, maybe not Trace. Maybe Trace is under 30 minutes, and maybe that means you go to Looney a bit, but those guys should all be playing significant minutes. KM says we should get Lonzo and Vooch. It would cost absolutely nothing, really, and this trade has high upside. Well, obviously, getting both those guys would cost you Wiggins, because those guys combined to make about 40 million. So that's Wiggins, GP2, and Looney. These last 2 Wiggins games haven't been great, but as some of you guys have mentioned, the defense is really important. The defense is really important. I also don't think they're going to get Lonzo after getting Schroeder. Like, I like Lonzo. Free agency in the offseason, if you can go get Lonzo Ball, I think that'd be a great fit. I'd love to see him. But on $20 million, obviously, there's a big risk there given the injury history. And I don't think they're going to get him. They're going to go after him when they've got Schroeder. I would like to see Vucevic, because I just think if Trace is only going to play 23 minutes, and I just don't want Draymond to be playing over half the game as a small ball 5. I don't want that. So really, ideally, I think you would have I'm not even sure, like, if you brought Vucevic in, I don't think you'd even have to have Draymond as a small ball 5 at all. Now, maybe you'd close first halves and games with him as a small ball 5 on some occasions. And again, maybe you need him to play a heavy load at small ball 5 so Kuminga can play his 30-plus minutes, which we want him to get. But I don't know. I think there's still periods where I'd like Kuminga, Draymond, Trace together. Now, again, that spacing is a concern. I get it. But I think that could still be effective. And I'm disappointed that Steve hasn't gone back to it too much yet. Cornella says we can't just say we should have went to JK over Steph. He gets one-on-one coverage because of Steph. Yeah, that's a good point. Gamer FTP says heard Memphis got DFS in a trade. Not yet, but potentially on the verge of a deal, which would reportedly, I know Mark Stein reported earlier today, it would reportedly send John Concha and Luke Kennard and a first-round pick to Brooklyn in exchange for Dorian Finney-Smith and second-round draft capital, apparently. So that would be, I don't know, a pretty good move from them. Kennard, I know he's got his limitations defensively, but he's an excellent shooter. And maybe the Nets could reroute him somewhere else, or he could be a buyout option for a team. That'd be interesting as well. KM says Kuminga has elite athletic ability with a quick first step. It can't be taught. Absolutely. Mark asks, Kuminga was the best player on the court. He was the best player on the court by a long way. Well, not a long way. Durant played really well and Beal played really well, but he was like Jonathan Kuminga was the best player on a basketball court in a game that also featured Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. That's all you have to say. Like, he was the best player in a game of basketball over a full 48 minutes that also featured Steph and KD. There you go. Anemi King, JK is a star if we allow him to play star minutes. We can't blame his inconsistencies when he's getting inconsistent minutes. Many casual fans agree with Kerr on how he treated him and Moody. Yeah, the issue, so you've just got to let him play through it, because I'm sorry, but like Steph gets a run sometimes. Like that first period of the second quarter, Steph was awful. Like awful. And of course, like, they're not going to bench Steph because of that. Like, we know that's not going to happen. But if Kuminga went out and did what Steph did in the first stint in the second quarter, Kuminga would be benched straight away. If Moody did that, he'd be benched straight away. Like, at some point, you have to let go of the leash on Kuminga a little bit and just say, okay, yeah, you know what? There's going to be some times where he makes some mistakes. There's going to be some times where he turns the ball over. There's going to be times where he runs into a few defenders and puts up a contested layup, which is a bit of an ill-advised shot. But the good is going to outweigh the bad. He is a guy who can be a star-level scorer for you. And it's not like Steph Curry is a flawless basketball player. Steph Curry makes mistakes, right? Steph Curry is prone to throwing the ball all over the floor and really having some horror mistakes. But you know what? You let him play through that because he's Steph Curry and he's the best shooter of all time, right? And I'm not trying to compare Kuminga to Steph, but I think it's time that you also allow Kuminga to play through those mistakes as well. Jay says, how's it going, mate? I just don't know about this team anymore. I'm like, trade JK, and then I'm like, now I'm like, we need a better two guy instead of Dennis. This is the most confusing year ever. Yeah, I think in an ideal world, and I still believe this, I still think Dennis should be the sixth man instead. And ideally, I think you'd have Wiggins as your two, Kuminga as your three, Draymond as your four, and I don't know if it's Trace as your five. I think a shooting five to add some spacing out there. I think that would be the ideal scenario. I don't know. I do agree with you. Like, I think the Schroeder Steph is a backcourt work. I think they're still going to try it out for another 5 or 6 games here. It's really going to come down to if they win games or not. If they win games, fine. Like, Schroeder made plays down the stretch, and so that was fine. That was good. But otherwise, it hasn't been great for him over the first 6 games. And do you need another guy there who I think ideally is a better 3-point shooter? It's such a shame that Melton got injured because he was perfect. Thendex says, so JK comes off the bench whilst getting 30 plus minutes. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. He's going to come off the bench and he's going to play 30, 35 minutes. Played 37 yesterday off the bench and then plays 34 and a half here off the bench. ATG Double Y says, I don't want to see Pods on the court. DNP Pods. He shouldn't be playing at all. If Pods didn't get hurt, we would have lost this game. You're not the first person to mention that today. Again, he was a minus 17, didn't score in just over 11 first half minutes. Go says, I think Moody is a better second side attacker than you think. He's a better scorer when you don't make him overthink like JK. Possibly. And again, I do hope once he's fully fit and healthy, I do hope he plays over Lindy Waters. I do think he has higher upside and therefore should be given the opportunity. So we'll wait and see if that's the case because Waters has had games this season where he's been ahead of Moody in the rotation. I think probably only one of them can play. Who that is, we'll wait and see. Cornelius says, we need some consistency at shooting guard. We need a shooter to unlock us, but he's not it. Yeah, they don't have an answer. Like, Schroeder's the answer at the moment, and, you know, he gives you some stuff. Like, he can get to the rim. Defensively, I think he's been okay. He was definitely good down the stretch of this game defensively. He can give you stuff there. He can, defend guys full court and harass guys and really bring that defensive intensity. So he brings you some stuff. He just doesn't really bring you the catch and shoot stuff. And so that's always going to make him pretty limited as a player next to Steph. So I don't know how they figure it out because it's not Buddy either. It can't be Buddy. It was DeAnthony Melton. He was perfect. It's obviously not going to be Pods at this point. I don't know who it is, if they need to go trade for another guy, who that guy is. I'm just thinking, like, if things go south for the Timberwolves, Dante DiVincenzo, he's probably the closest to Melton I can think of in terms of, like, a legit catch and shoot guy who can also semi-handle the ball a little bit, can also play some defense for you. Like, he's the closest thing to Melton I can think of who I don't think he will be available, but there have been some rumblings about it. Cornelis says a shooter with Dennis at the 6 man. I agree. Mr. Level says still trade Kuminga for Fox. Yeah, but the issue with that is you'd probably also have to trade Wiggins, and I just don't think you're doing that. I don't think you're doing Wiggins and Kuminga for Fox. I don't know. The Kuminga stuff is so weird because I think a lot of people could rightfully argue that, hey, performances like these, the trade value goes up. This is the perfect time to trade him. I think some people would argue that. And then other people would think, oh, well, this just shows you can't trade. Like, I saw a lot of people on the timeline saying, you just can't trade Kuminga for Cam Johnson. You cannot, because, like, these two performances from Kuminga over these last 2 games, like, Cam Johnson could really never dream of performances like these. And so you just wouldn't do that. So it's super fascinating to see where this goes. Like, the fact he could be, like, you could argue these 2 performances, we still don't really know what's going on. There's still a path here where he's off the team by the deadline and then he's traded. There's also a path where he actually ascends and he's a legitimate second guy for Steph. And then he's like 25 points a game. It's so contrasting. It's just the way of his career. And I don't know what's next. I hope it's the latter. I hope it's, this guy's blossoming into a star. And Steve has said he thinks he's turned the corner. We'll wait and see. You don't have to trade Wiggins to get Fox. ATG Double Y says, I would trade Wiggins and Draymond before I trade JK. No one in their right mind would trade a 22-year-old future star for anyone right now. So this is the thing. I love this debate. I love this argument because some fans are going to think this is the perfect time to trade him because his value will be high and rival teams will be looking at this and thinking, yeah, like, we need to take a chance on this guy. And then, like ATGYY has just said, other fans would be saying, no, there's just no way you trade JK for anyone, or at least not anyone that's, a De'Aaron Fox, or, if you were to trade Kuminga, it would have to be for a bona fide, like, all-NBA player. Just looking at notification here, Slater's there's just an update here about the Draymond Green, Buddy Hield exchange. Draymond says, Mike's catch everything today. I don't care. I'll say it right into the mic. Yeah, I don't think Draymond's going to be too disappointed or regretful about him saying those comments being heard on the broadcast. That's just who Draymond is. I think he's not going to care. He's not going to care about that whatsoever. Not again, 90 says, if he was given the blessings and the keys a lot earlier like what he wanted, we probably would be used to seeing 30 points a night from JK. But I agree, it's just a huge state of contrast right now. Yeah, but would those have amounted to wins? I suppose the argument you could make is the Warriors, since the championship, haven't really been winning anyway. They made the second round of the playoffs in 2023, which is fine, but they didn't make the playoffs last season. I think that's probably the most disappointing thing, is that if 18 months ago you said, okay, you're not going to make the playoffs in 2023, and then in 2024, you're not going to make the playoffs in 2024, and then at the start of the following season, you're going to be 16-15. If you told me that, but you also said Jonathan Kuminga is blossoming into a bona fide star and looks like a legit number 2 star next to Steph Curry, then I would have you'd probably almost take that, to be honest. You'd almost take that. But the fact that we've got to this point and we're still questioning whether Kuminga's that guy or not, and it's still up and down a little bit, that's what makes it all the more disappointing, because we just don't have that clarity yet on what Kuminga is and whether he's a long-term part of the future. Right now, it looks like he is based on these 2 games, but we know things can turn very quickly with him. Cornelius Roberts says, trade Moody, slow-mo, and definitely pods for Cam. I'm assuming you mean Cam Johnson there. So contracts don't really work on that, because, again, Moody's outgoing is only 5.8 or 5.9 million for the Warriors. Slow-mo makes 8, so that, or 8 or 9, so that gets you to 14, and Pods is 3.5, so that's still about $5-6 million short of Cam Johnson. If you could make that trade, you probably would, but again, you can't make that deal, which, again, you'd need, I think, GP2 and Loon. If Loon's going to be a DNP like he was, then I'm sorry, those guys are on expiring contracts. That's $17.1 million. You can go out and get a guy. Again, if I don't know, Vucevic, I'm sorry to say, Vucevic making 20. Why can't it be Looney, GP2, and Moody for Vucevic and Torrey Craig? You're not actually, from the rotation we saw tonight, you're not losing anything. Looney didn't play, GP2 didn't play, Moody didn't play. And you're adding Vucevic, who's a starting caliber player and can give you 20 and 10. I don't know. ATGYY says, the fact we want JK to be the second option is sad. Wiggins is the second highest paid player on this team. He should be the second option. He's in his prime. Calling out Wiggins. I want Pods off this team so bad. Wiggins has been, let me just check the averages now for this season, because Wiggins has been the second guy, but I think you're pretty limited if Wiggins is your second guy, because I know Steve at the start of the season said, he's a 20-point per game guy in this league. He's just not. He's never been that for the Warriors. He's 16.6 points. He's 41.4% from 3, which is great. Wiggins has had a good season. Now, yes, he's had 2 bad games. Otherwise, he's had a good season. Kuminga, with this performance, has now overtaken Wiggins as the second leading scorer on the team this season. He's 16.7 points, 0.1 ahead of Wiggins. He's now 45.5% from the floor, which is better than both Steph and Wiggins and Buddy Hield, who's the 4th leading scorer. Kuminga, if he can get that 3 ball up, be nice. The thing with Kuminga is when you give him more opportunity, he's just more efficient as well, which is no surprise. When you actually get into a rhythm and play consistently, then you feel more comfortable and therefore you are more efficient. And we've seen that with Moody as well. Moody, when he plays more than 20 minutes, look at his shooting percentages as opposed to when he plays less than 20 minutes. It's quite a stark contrast. So you'd think if Kuminga can get the consistent opportunity, he's going to be over 50% from the floor. He's going to be mid to high 30s from three, hopefully, and more so the free throw shooting. The best thing about these last two games is what he's going to combine. He was 8 of 12 in this game? Just checking. Yes, he was 8 of 12 after going 11 of 14. So he's 19 of 26 over the, yes, 19 of 26. Am I right on that? I think that's correct maths. 8 and 11 is 19, and then 12 and 14 is 26. So yes, he's 19 of 26 from the free throw line over the last two games, which is what percent? 19 of 26 as a percentage. My old man would be turning in his grave because he was a maths teacher for 40 years. 73%, which, you know what, if Kuminga's shooting 73%, you're probably taking it, to be honest, given he's only at 63% on the season. Fendecker says, to be fair, Wiggins has been our best player this season except the last 2-3 games. Agree with that. Mr. Level says, you're missing a key factor with Moody contract. Even though it's $5.8 million when you trade his contract, it turns into $10 million. It's like a trade kit. Yeah, it's the poison pill contract, but it's $5.8 million outgoing for the Warriors. So that's the outgoing salary. And then for the incoming team, it's the average of this year's salary in the extension, which is about $11 million, which means, as I've said in previous episodes, that really the only way you could probably trade him, particularly if it's in a multiplayer trade, is if you trade him to the Pistons, who have all this cap room and could take on his deal, because otherwise it's very difficult, because you've got the Warriors very close to the first tax apron and all the other teams in over the tax and close to the aprons or over the aprons or whatever else. This makes it very difficult when there's that contrast between his outgoing salary for the Warriors and his incoming salary for other teams. Not Again says, I don't think Wiggs has been in his prime since when he first entered the league. He's always been known as a player that can give you stretches here and there. I never saw him as the number two. He was the number two on a championship team. Like, that was his prime. I think as a winning basketball player, Andrew Wiggins was in his prime during those 2022 playoffs because he was defending everyone. Luka, Tatum doing a great job defensively. He was giving you 18 to 20 points a game, and he was also rebounding the hell out of the ball as well. I know he had 7 rebounds in this game, but sometimes he's rebounding. Like, what about that play? Was it early in the third quarter where he just got an uncontested rebound and then the ball just fell out of his hands out of bounds? And I was like, what are you doing? Like, what was going on there? I don't know. There's just sometimes he's just not solid enough with the ball after he grabs a rebound. Anyway, Kenneth says, Pods is the next Stephen Curry if Golden State Warriors have the organization babysitting Pods once upon a time untouchable in trade talks. Yeah, it's going to be a long conversation if we just go back to the offseason and whether they should move Pods or not. I've spoken about it incessantly, so I won't do so again. Cornelius says, it's hard for me to see us trading Loon. He always comes up big when we call upon him in big games. That's true, and the Warriors are going to need him at some point. I also just think, what about Cornelius if you just trade him as an expiring contract and then promise to bring him back in free agency? Like, why couldn't you do that? Just bring him back on a vet minimum. And so really, you're just trading him away for half a season and then bringing him back. I don't know. If it means your team gets better, and particularly if it gives you something different at the 5 spot, or maybe it's to get a better shooter next to Steph in the backcourt, I don't know. ATGYY says, Wiggins was great in 2022 because it was a contract year. He signed and turned into a G League player. He hasn't turned into you're way too critical of Wiggins based on 2 games. I know he's been bad these 2 games, but like, he's been the second best, maybe the third best if you want to include Draymond. I don't know. But Wiggins has been good. He's been very good this season. He's been better than expectations, I think, Andrew Wiggins. So, like, yeah, way too critical based on 2 games. Also says, not trading Pods for Larry is the worst move ever. This kid is overrated and a pylon on defense. Yeah, I'm not going to get into it. KM says we need Wiggins to elite defensively and give us at least 15 on offense. Kuminga needs to take his load on offense. Yeah, I think Steve was trying to push this narrative, and it kind of worked for the first 15 or so games. It's like Wiggins was this number 2 guy, that he was a 20-point per game scorer. We went into the season thinking Kuminga's that guy, right? Kuminga should be the second leading scorer on this team, and it's taken 30 games to get there, but I think this is definitely showing that he should be. All right, I'm going to finish it up. We've been going for nearly 50. Big victory over the Mavericks, which is good for the Warriors in the standings. They're up 122, 114. Clay, 5 of 17 from the floor, 2 of 8, 12 points. Not great by the sound of it. Kyrie does have 46 points for the Mavericks, but they look like they're going to lose this game. Heap of scorers for the Blazers. Ayton has 20. Sharp has 23. Simons has 20. Henderson has 19. Avdia also has 20. The Lakers, they are about to beat. Well, actually, they're not about to beat. There's still a quarter to go, but they do find themselves up 17 against the Kings. That's without LeBron. The Kings, it's nearly a wrap. It's nearly a wrap for them. I tell you, they've just fired Mike Brown. DeRozan has 23 on 11 of 13 shooting. That's efficient, but he's a minus 14. Keegan Murray just hasn't taken a leap whatsoever. He's 5 points, 1 of 5 from deep, not good. Sabonis, 12 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, but he's 5 of 12 from the floor. Monk, 13 points. Fox, 15 points on 19 shots, 8 assists. I don't know. Would you have interest in De'Aaron Fox? If you could keep Kuminga and you could trade Wiggins and picks for Fox, would you do it? I don't know. I don't think so. Because I actually think if Kuminga is like a legit second guy, then I think that almost makes Wiggins more important because he's actually like a really good fit as this like complementary third scorer and like the number one guy from a perimeter defense perspective. So I don't know. Atlanta beat Miami. Jimmy Butler still out for them. OKC beat Charlotte, continue to dominate. The Knicks beat the Wizards in overtime. How did my boy... Oh, no, Paul didn't play, did he? I was going to say, how did my boy JP go? But he didn't play. Just looking here. 31 points from Justin Champagny. That's got to be one of the most random performances of the season. 55 points for Jalen Brunson. Wow. 30 from Cat. 21 for Bridges. The Knicks are so dynamic offensively. Chicago beat Milwaukee. How did Vucevic go? We've got to check. Every time the Bulls play, we've got to see how Nikola went. He had 23 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists. Was a +3 and a 5-point victory. 10 of 24, 3 of 7. My boy Josh Giddey, 23, 15, and 10. Triple-double. Aussie represent. Get around him. Levine, a bit quieter. 15 points, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. A few others. Denver beat Detroit, which is a little bit frustrating for the Warriors. Would have been nice for the Pistons to get an upset win there. What did Joker have? Just a lazy 37, 9, and 8. Pretty standard performance. Michael Porter Jr., we know the trade speculation around him. He had 26. 34 for Murray. Westbrook also got the start. Had 8, 9, 8. A couple of steals as well. So the standings, updated standings here, might change a bit based on, obviously, this won't have accounted for the Mavericks loss and the Lakers-Kings game yet, but the Warriors are still 10th. They're tied with the Spurs at 16 and 15, the Timberwolves 16 and 14. So I don't know. They're now a game ahead of the Suns. It's still very congested. They've got to stick with, I think, the top 4, Thunder, Grizzlies, Rockets, and Mavericks. I think they might separate themselves, although Luka is out for a period here, so they might come back to the pack a little bit. But I think that the 5-seed Clippers, like, there's no reason why the Warriors should end the season with a worse record than the Clippers, I think. So that's kind of the spot there where I think the Warriors should they've got to try and stick around the 5th seed, like within a game or two of them. They're currently 2 games out from the 5 seed. They've got to be around that mark, I think. Fendex says, we need a big. Jay says, why is Kerr so inclined to run 2 PGs? Draymond is like the PG already, and I think it hinders the team. Yeah, so who should be starting instead? If it's not Schroeder, who should be starting? Are you wanting Buddy Hield to start? No, thank you. Pods, Waters, Moody, GP2. Who is it? It's so disappointing that Melton got injured. Sire says, hi, mate. Good win on to the next one. Should make this 5-game homestand count. Yes, let's hope so. Again, I spoke last episode about the Warriors' schedule getting a little bit easier in terms of obviously having a bunch of home games. It doesn't necessarily get easier from an opponent standpoint, given they face the Cavs next. They were all conquering 27-4 in the Eastern Conference, but they are going to have an easier schedule here, so hopefully they can take advantage. Brother says, shout out to everyone in the chat, including GS with mates. Keep up the good work on the channel. Appreciate and shout out from the South Bronx, brother. Appreciate your kind words there. Thank you very much. Mr. Level says, trade for Fox is a true superstar available. Jay says, slide Wiggins to the 2. I think Kerr overreacting, changing that lineup. And now that JK is playing better, he should go back to it. I think we should see it for stretches. I'm okay with JK coming off the bench, but I would prefer to have Trace play closer to 30. And that means you're probably going to have to play him alongside Draymond and Kuminga a bit more. And then, even Draymond, I don't think Draymond should be playing as much. Draymond played, what did he play in this game? Just going back to the box score here. Draymond played nearly 35 minutes. I don't think Draymond needs to play that much. I think bring Draymond back to 30, play Trace those 5 minutes, and that's how you can kind of figure that out. I don't know. Shai says a win against Cleveland would boost the fan and team morale. Going to be an interesting one. Yeah, they obviously got blown out a bit by the Cavs, or not a bit. They were down 40 at halftime in Cleveland earlier in the season. Hopefully, obviously, should put up a better performance than that on their home floor. Cornelis says, all these trade talks, we don't need Fox. We need someone who can play defense and be a sharpshooter in our offense. Yeah, who is it, though? Who is it? I don't know. Sai says, put Kyle on Mobley, GP2 on Garland. GP2 won't be back. He's still out injured with that calf strain or whatever he's got. And Slow-Mo's just not playing. And I spoke before about Looney GP2 being $17.1 million in expiring salary. The Warriors also have Kyle Anderson making $8 or $9 million. And if he's going to be a DMP consistently, ship him out. That's salary. Go use him in a trade. And if you're going to shorten this rotation, that just means that it makes it even more important that a consolidation trade has to happen where it's a 3-for-1 or 4-for-1. Anderson, Looney, GP2, all making over $8 million. There's $24, $25 million, $26 million, whatever it is. Go and make a 3-for-1 trade. Do it. It makes it actually more important that they do that if they're going to shorten the rotation like this. Go get another piece, and then all of a sudden, maybe you've got a top 7 now. You've got the 5, you've got Kuminga as the 6, and then you go trade for another guy who can go play 25-plus minutes, and he's a 7. And all of a sudden, you've got a hierarchy that I've been calling for so much. All right, I'm going to finish it up there, guys. Been going for nearly an hour, but I think it certainly deserved, this performance from Jonathan Kuminga certainly deserved to be spoken about as much as we have. A huge performance from him. Cornelis says, Miller from the Hornets, what you think? The Hornets are not giving up Brandon Miller. Jay says, Kevin Knox has been pretty good in the G League. Maybe give him some run over waters. Yeah, he's not on a contract, though. So he's not actually on the roster. He's with Santa Cruz at the moment. He's been impressive. He was obviously on the training camp roster. He's not on the current roster. He's not eligible for a 2-way contract, which the Warriors still have available to them after Reece Beekman was included in that Nets trade for Schroeder. So the only way Knox can get on the roster is if you waived Guy Santos, essentially. And I don't think they're going to do that, although based on the nearly 5 minutes we saw from Guy yesterday, maybe that should happen. Again, going to finish it up, guys. Thank you very much for listening. I don't know. I kind of want to talk about JK some more. So, I'll go watch the press conferences again, see if there's anything more important to be spoken about. And I might be back for a podcast episode tomorrow. We'll wait and see what happens. Otherwise, the Warriors play the Cavs on Monday, and I'll certainly be back for a post-game live after that. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel already, that'd be greatly appreciated. Follow me at POC252. That's POK252. On X/Twitter. You can follow us Golden State with Mates on Instagram and TikTok as well. Thanks to everyone that has commented. Thanks again to those who are watching on the replay or via the podcast feed. And I'll see you next time.